Executive Director at the Center for American Geopolitics. Paul Michael, thank you so much indeed for your time. Let me just give a bit of reference context to the viewer. Germany currently sources nearly all of its natural gas from abroad. In 2018, that was 94%. Go back 6 years, in 2015, 35% of German gas imports came from Russia. So why the extreme consternation and concern now?
Well, let me just say this. In terms of this agreement, we have a win-win-win on one side and a loss-loss on another side. The win-win side is Russia, Germany, and the U.S. The loss side on two fronts, Ukraine and Poland. The completion of this pipeline was inevitable. It was never going to be stalled through sanctions by the Trump administration or the Biden administration. And you're quite correct. There's a lot of hand-wringing and consternation arising from various groups, special interest groups in Washington, who were promoting either Ukrainian or Polish interests vis-a-vis Russia. The fact of the matter is Germany requires this natural gas pipeline, is going to be shutting down 6 nuclear plants next year. And there will be a requirement for up to 18 gigawatts of power. The only source of fuel that can generate that amount of power within the next 12 to 24 months is from natural gas. So the extra 55 billion cubic meters of gas coming in from Russia via Nord Stream 2 is absolutely essential for Germany's economic security as well as its energy security.
So you mentioned Ukraine and Poland. Does that mean that it's a geopolitical issue for Washington rather than a financial one? Because I was trying to understand during this whole process that has been going on for a few years, whether the Americans were actually concerned that their businesses might be losing out. Were American businesses ever in a position to be able to supply Germany and Western European countries with their energy requirements in terms of gas?
No, because if you're building a pipeline or you're selling LNG, you need to have a buyer at the other end. You have to contract an agreement before you can start shipping. That was never the case in Germany. There is no LNG import terminal in Germany for regasification. So until you have that, it's impossible to be shipping directly to Germany for cost efficiencies in terms of meeting market demand in Germany. So that was always a non-starter. There was a geopolitical overlay because of the U.S. relationship with Poland and the really terrible relations, bilateral relations between the U.S. and Russia during the Trump administration as a consequence of the fraudulent and bogus accusations of complicity and collusion between President Trump and Russia. Of course, this is now proven to be a falsehood, but that was used to generate very dire relations between Russia and the United States, and Nord Stream 2 pipeline got involved in that mix of accusations that have now been proven false. But the bigger issue from a geopolitical point of view now under the Biden administration is to recruit Germany into Washington's campaign to contain, isolate, and possibly decouple the U.S. economy from China. Don't forget the One Belt Road project that the Chinese are working on needs Germany as its anchor in the West to complete this geostrategic project across the Eurasian landmass. Washington, for a number of reasons under the Biden administration, wants to recruit Berlin into its campaign to contain and isolate Beijing economically. So that's the real reason why there's an agreement between Washington and Berlin on the pipeline. The pipeline is secondary or tertiary in terms of priorities. The real priority for Washington is to deal with China, not to prevent the completion of this pipeline, which is only 100 kilometers away from completion to the German coast.
Right, there's always a bigger picture, isn't there? Briefly, if you don't mind, Paul Michael, what do you make of the deal between Washington and Berlin? It seems really quite woolly and not at all precise that the Germans say, yes, we would take action against Russia if it weaponized our gas supply or our allies' gas supply.
It's highly problematic. There's a lot of ifs, whens, and buts in that agreement. Yes, there'll be some German money and euros going to Ukraine for energy security issue. But the fact of the matter is the pledges that are made by Chancellor Merkel may not be carried out by her successor. And her successor is a gentleman who comes from a coal background. His father was, I believe, a coal miner, and he has expressed his desire to move forward with fossil fuels in Germany. So all of these agreements to contain Russia, place sanctions on Russia, if it, for some reason, backtracks in some way on this deal, I regard it as highly problematic. I don't put much weight to it at all.
Paul Michael Wihbey, really appreciate your time, sir. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.